Happy Thursday, friends. Welcome to another episode of Lean Coaching for Lean Coaches. As always, I'm so excited to be here with you. That's right, you and this wonderful community that we have here. And today we're going to talk about, I'm not going to lie, it's not one of my favorite subjects, but it's one as entrepreneurs that we need to um, process and deal with and work on always. And it's Sales 101. And the reason why I've called it Sales 101, well, for a couple reasons. First off, that's the level that I'm at in my sales journey. I'm at the 101 level. There are others that I've learned from and follow and talk to on a regular basis. They're teaching the master's level. They're at the doctorate level of this. For me, I'm at that 101 course. I'm a year and a half into my business, and I'm still learning. And I've learned a bit in my year and a half about what works and mainly what doesn't work. I've learned a lot about that. And so, what I want to share with you today is by no means a master class. It's what I've learned over the past year and a half. And I want this to be a conversation, so please do drop in the comments about what you found works for you, what you don't, what you think of this outline that I'm going to offer, the questions that I'm going to offer to be using on your sales calls, your exploration calls, however you want to frame that. But let's make this a conversation and interaction because we can all learn from each other. I'm still doing experiments. I'm still doing the PDCA, the PDSA, experimenting, however you want to put it. Because as I was thinking about this in terms of lean in sales, we're the bottleneck, right? If we're struggling with finding folks to work with, typically it isn't because there isn't folks out there who could use our support. It's that we're struggling with believing that we offer something that's meaningful or how to show up in a way that doesn't feel desperate in those conversations, whether it's in the start of the conversations in the DM, which we've been kind of talking about. A few weeks ago we talked about the conversation starts in those personalized connections, and then last week we talked about how can we have a conversation with another human being and how we can outline those. So if you didn't get a chance to check those out, go back and watch the replays. I've got a YouTube channel where you can check all those out. So feel free to do that. I'll put a link in the comments after. Um, but it's all about that conversation. And I know it can be a struggle. So when we get into the call where we finally, we've built up that personal connection, we've actually offered a call. Would you be open to that conversation where we could explore working together? And they're, yeah, let's do that. And so when this is okay, when we get on that conversation, here's the outline and questions to think about and ask during that conversations. And it's by no means exhaustive, but hopefully can prompt you to be thinking about, the outline of the conversation. But I'd like to say, start off with the mentality to come into the conversation with. And so if you're in that place right now in your lean journey, and you could use support and help. This is what I do for lean coaches, lean practitioners, and folks in that general space on the regular basis. I love to do it. And if you've got questions, wondering, and this resonates for you, I'd love to have a conversation and see if this could be a good fit to work together. And I guess that's where I'd like to start off. Is just a few weeks ago, I was interacting with a community of other coaches, not necessarily lean coaches, but coaches that are on this journey, and we're always talking about different things in terms of our mindset, and then also, any challenges that we have, including, sales. And one of the gentlemen posted a Instagram post from a gentleman marketing for hippies, Tad Hargrave, because of course, a marketing for hippies would be run by a gentleman named Tad. But the essence of what he said, and I'll put a link the to the video for him in here as well in the comments. But the essence of it was stop hoping they choose you. Stop hoping they choose you. Because in that moment when you're hoping for that, then there's um, a desperation that can definitely pop up and like, oh my goodness, what if they do? What if they don't? Then what? And then you come into the conversation and it all becomes about convincing. And that's where those the desperation can come up. But what he contrasts that with, and this is where I want to take the conversation, is see if it's a good fit for both parties. That should be the intention when you're coming into the conversation. Is I'm uncovering, um, is this a good fit for this person, for me to support them, and is it a good fit for me to support them, right? So and for them to be supported by me, it needs to be a two-way street. Sure, we'd like to think that what we have to offer, our product or service, is for everyone, but the reality is it's not. And if it in your mind it is, then you need to go back to the drawing board, because what we have to offer is for a particular person. Right? We've talked about in our marketing conversations having a clear picture of the person you're serving and the challenges that they're having. So once you have that, then you're bringing to the table something that can hopefully help meet that person and their pain point, their struggle that they're in this point. So wanted to frame this conversation with that in mind, that this is a 101 class and that it really starts with, when you get into that sales conversation, with our mindset of stop hoping they choose you and look to see if it's a good fit. If I could leave you with anything today, it's come into those conversations with seeing if it's a good fit. And that's really where I'm working to be in my mindset when I come on the calls, because I can still get in that place where like, oh man, I need a sale. I got to get this. I got to do that. And it's like that you're going to show up in a way that's not the way you want to show up. You want to be there for that person and help them with the pain point that they're dealing with. So the the frame that I want to put on today, the three things that I want to talk about are, in those conversations, the exploration sales call, set yourself up for success. So we're going to talk about kind of the pre-work to get into the, when you're talking about having a call, setting yourself up with an agenda, and then prompting a story from the person. Then the second part, we want to talk about what we do well as lean coaches, practitioners, is we talk about where we want to be, the ideal state, where they are right now, and those pain points and challenges. So we're going to talk about that. And then lastly, we want to talk about, the close, the dreaded close of that, and thinking about a one or two part close. Maybe you haven't been familiar with those terms. I wasn't until recently, but we'll talk about those here as well. So please go ahead and drop in if you've got like comments or thoughts, things that are coming to mind as we're having this conversation. And um, what are the things that you struggle with in the exploration calls, in those sales calls? What are your biggest pain points? Because I want to make sure that we're speaking to those here today and ongoing. Uh, so let's talk about it. Let's talk about it. So how do you set yourself up for success going into a exploration call? And it starts really before it. You want to make sure that you're grounded and you're coming into the call um, feeling confident and feeling like, I just like that word, grounded, centered, aligned, that you're feeling that you're bringing something to offer to the person that you're having a conversation in. I like to have a set an intention. So I actually, let's see if I think I've got it here. Yep. This is what I do on my calls. I set up myself a half page of notes, and then I will take notes during the conversation. Just a little flow chart for how it went, a little word or two about how things went through the conversation. And I'll start by, putting the name and the date, and then also put a word for how I want to show up in that conversation. You'll even see today that on on a conversation I had recently, I put the word stand because I wanted to feel like I was rooted in the ground, that I'm grounded, I'm centered, I'm standing, I'm present, and I'm confident. And so that word was helping me set that intention even beforehand so that when I might be getting anxious or stressed in the moment, I can go back and go, okay, yeah, this was my intention for the time. I'm going to stand. I'm confident. I'm present here with the person. So having a grounding, setting that intention beforehand, super critical. Coming into that conversation, this is something I'm working on, not like in a rush from another um previous call or something else where you're like running in, you're out of breath. Want to give ourselves space between conversations so that when you come into the conversation there with the person, that you're actually present with them, that you can take a deep breath or two before you get into that conversation. Again, this is something that I'm working on myself to make sure that I'm not running, because I can get into that busyness and, oh, I got to do this, I got to do this. And so that when I get into the call, that I'm in that rushed state and we don't think clearly, we're not able to be present with that other person, again, to find out if it's a good fit and have that conversation. If I'm running, like, that does not translate into that at all. Good morning, Adam. Glad to have you as always. Thanks for chiming in. Would love to hear your thoughts on this too. What are the challenges? What are your thoughts, questions around sales for yourself and anyone else here? So definitely chime in, please. Um, so once you've got that in your mind, you get on the call. The first thing that you want to do is make sure that you establish an agenda with the other person and how the conversation is going to go. So there's always a tension here, right? We want to make sure that we're open and adaptable to how the conversation is going to go. But at the same time, we need to be the one that is controlling, like, the conversation. Um, and that starts by setting the agenda. And the agenda that I typically like to offer is just say, hey, want to, hear more of your story. Where are you headed to? Where are you at now? What are those pain points? And then, if I'll offer a few thoughts around those things that you're dealing with, and then if it feels like a good fit, we'll talk about what it looks like to work together. So I want to set up that agenda, just even in general, because then it helps be able to guide the conversation. And you can say, how does that sound? And yeah, that sounds great. And there you have it. So that can help you too with that intention, right? If you've had that intention of, okay, I'm wanting to be grounded, that's going to help you too, because you've got a format now for how that conversation is going to go. So you've got the grounding, you've got the agenda, and then the first question I like to have, and this is something I got a year ago, and I forget who I got it from, but I got on a call with them, and they're like, "So what's your story?" And there was no, like, prompting for how they would share the story or how I would share the story, but just that, like, what's your story? And I love that for a great way. Now you've already had a good conversation. At this point, you're not hopping onto a call with somebody who's a stranger, but it's a great opportunity for them to be able to start feeling comfortable with you. And I think it also helps you get an idea of what's important to them. What are they thinking about? Where's their head at? Where's their heart at? When you allow them to just free flow, you get an idea more of this person. If we talked about setting that intention of seeing if it's a good fit, you can tell a lot about a person by what they choose to share with you. What's the energy? What's their passion? You start feeling the energy and sensing, yeah, what's important to them, what they're passionate about. I actually like that. I never really thought about it until now, but that really is giving you a sense and an idea of, again, more about, is this a good fit for you and them, right? So you're getting a good idea and they're getting a good idea of who you are through this process. So that first part, right? You're setting yourself up for success. The whole conversation, you start before grounding yourself, you offer the agenda, and then you you ask them to tell a story. So that's setting the conversation up. And this is, we're not trying to cover all of a sales conversation in a 30-minute call. Lord knows there are courses and hours and people pay thousands of dollars for this. This is what I've tried in my experience and has led to some really good conversations. So that's the start, right? Setting yourself up for success. Then the middle portion of the conversation. And this is what I'd like to say. If you're someone who practices continuous improvement, any of the in any of its shapes, ways, or forms, we've all likely done some form of whether it's in an A3, if you're doing a process map, right? Any type of work and improvement work, you've done this, right? We ask the group that we're working with, the leader that we're working with, what is your ideal state, right? What is your dream state? I like to ask that. Okay, give me in, if you want whatever time frame you want, you're working with a person, 3 months, 6 months, a year. What's your dream state? Draw it out for me. Help me get an idea of what you're looking to accomplish. And I don't want just facts and figures here, although that can be a part of it. I like them painting a picture for me for in that time period. What does it look like? What's going on? If you were to put a GoPro on your head and walk around the space that you're working on making better, whether it's your business, the shop floor, the office, whatever it might be, tell me what you're seeing going on in your ideal condition, right? And what you're, I like to go to the space of what are you feeling? What are you sensing in the space? That's such a great way to, again, surface because we're like we talked about, we're getting to know them, all right? We're getting to know if it's a good fit for us in working together. So we start with that ideal. And again, draw a picture for me. I love that because again, it's helping them explore and explain what's going on for them and what they're picturing. Then we want to know, okay, how are things going for you right now? Now, in our conversation in the DMs, coming from our last call where we talked last week about having that conversation in the DM, we talked about having this framework as well, right? Like you've got an idea of what their general goal is, what their current, state is, and what their challenge is. We just want them to flesh it out even more, because typically on sales calls, people are just looking to do their pitch, but that's not you, right? You're not looking to get on this call to just like throw up and make your offer, right? Because that's coming from that place of hoping they choose you, right? Like, "Bleh, here's this great thing I have to offer." You need to see if it's a fit. We need to dig deeper and get going, dig deeper. And I can't tell you how many times where it's just people getting that space to process. They don't get that, right? Either at work or even on a conversation. And if you're a coach or a consultant, by approaching the sales conversation in this way, they're getting to experience you and how you're going to show up. And if all you do is just fill the space with the great knowledge that you have and the offer, that's they're getting a sense for you, right? That's how you're showing up. But if you as a coach or consultant are coming in and you're really digging deeper, they're is that, oh, this is how he's gonna, like, we're gonna work together, because that is how you're going to work together. And so this is a great place for you to shine and show your care and your curiosity and your skills right here. And people will show up differently because you're showing up differently. Um, so you've already kind of set the stage through the conversation you've had and the DM. And so here you've asked them to create that picture, current place that you're, is the current things going for you right now. I love this framework we use in recovery work, and it's one that I think can be used in continuous improvement work. When we're talking about, hey, how are things going right now? Right? Um, Honesty over performance, right? they're in this conversation with you because they have a challenge, right? So we want to surface, okay, how are things looking right now? So, however you want to frame that question, again, it's always great you're getting to know this person so you can use language that resonates for them. If it's current state or just how are things going right now, make sure that you're resonating with them with the language that you're using. So, you got a picture of where they want to be, where they're at right now, and then what are the biggest, pain points or challenges that you're having that are keeping you from getting to where you want to be? Um, that's like the no-brainer, right? That's the question that should come up. What do you feel is keeping you from getting to where you want to be? And using that word feel instead of think intentionally, because we want them to drop into the feelings. Typically, the folks that we're working with in operations or leadership, be real thinkers. So asking them to get into their feelings. Okay, what do you feel are the pain points that are keeping you from getting to where you want to be? So then you allow them to share. And I always love the question from Michael Bungay Steiner's The Coaching Habit. It's a great book. I've got the 7 questions up here as a reference for me. If I'm struggling to come up with a question to help dive deeper and help the person I'm working with, I like to go to one of these questions. And one of my favorites, it's so simple. He calls it the awe question. And what else? This is something you can just toss in there anytime that you're struggling. Um, and you also sense that maybe there's something else that's there. It's just simply, and what else? What else? What else is, getting in your way? And they'll tell you, don't be afraid to ask this question a couple times because typically you don't get to the real challenge that they're struggling with until at least the first and what else, if not like the second. Because then it'll pop out and they'll be like, wow, okay, yeah, that's the thing. And then that's where you're again getting to know them and seeing what's really going on. And here is the space where I think you're really starting to feel, okay, this is a good fit. You can tell how they're showing up with their energy and how much they're sharing, what they're sharing about. If again, your energy, like how you show up and how they show up in terms of just personality, energy, if that's a good fit. And if your service or the way that you show up and support folks is a good fit. And so this is a great opportunity to get that sense. And don't discount that feeling that you have in that moment if you're feeling and sensing that energy or you're feeling a disconnection. And this is something I'm learning to do. Don't be afraid to call it out. And, I'm sensing some, hesitation, or it feels like, maybe there's some, whatever you're feeling in that moment. Um, and trust yourself in that moment to be able to work your way through that. Again, it's something that I'm working on, and as I choose to be brave and step into those spaces, some amazing things happen when you do that. Because again, people aren't used to being seen fully or called out in those ways. Not in a way that you're like trying to be um, trying to like uncover something or be like just to agitate, but because you genuinely want to help them. And that's how you can do it, by digging in and getting a deeper understanding. So we talked about the setting up yourself for success, the that middle portion of the conversation, the help me understand where you're looking to be, the ideal state, the current state, and then those obstacles. And then the questions here I like to ask. If you aren't able to solve this problem, or if you do solve this problem, what would it feel like to solve this problem that you're struggling with? What would it feel like to like get over this hump that you're dealing with? And then you just let them share what that would be like. And again, you can use the other questions of like, tell me more, or again, what else? And then you can contrast it with, well, if you don't solve it, what would that feel like? What's going on? And again, drop into the feelings, allow them to really get into that space of like, man, if I don't do this, it's going to feel like this. I've had people say, I'm going to feel regret or wishing that I had gone back or, you know, um, there's so many more things that folks will share right here if you give them the opportunity to. And this is the point where you're gonna get that sense. Okay, they're at that space that they need support, and then that's where you ask the question that takes you to kind of, I feel like, the space of, is this a one like a one session conversation or a two? You can kind of get that feeling where you're like, okay, I need a little more space and time to process this. But you want to get that idea of, do they feel like it's a good fit, right? So you would ask, do you feel like you need support in being able to get into that space um, where you feel good about things, right? Where you solve this problem? Do you feel like you need support to be able to do that? And just let that question be, right? And let them process that. And most folks, if you're in that conversation, you've gotten to this point, and especially if it's a space where you're making sure that it's a fit, you wouldn't want to ask this question if that is not a fit. But if you're sensing that it's a fit, do you feel like you need support? And then typically they'll say, well, yeah, I could use support. Don't show up and throw up with a line card. That's great, Lee. That's great. Don't show up and throw up. That's great. Um, so at that point, you would ask the question, and you could even use what we've talked about. It's all about finding a good fit, right? And getting you support in that. I certainly like working with folks like yourself who are, intentional, they're purposeful, and they want to move forward and face their challenges. And so, it feels like a good fit for me, but want to make sure that it's a fit for you. Would you be interested in knowing what support would for me would look like? And that's where they can either say yes or no. And this is the point where I've taken to putting it into a two-part. I don't necessarily like these words, but it's what my sales coach has used. Um, you know, a one or two part close, right? Are you going to have a second conversation? Um, or are you going to offer your support at that point? And what I like to do, if you're sensing, okay, you've had a longer conversation and you want to come back around, but I like using this. And this is something where you would say, um, well, especially if they're like, yes, I'd be interested in. Well, what I'd like to do is come back around, do some reflection on giving you some thoughts of how I could support you in some ways that, would be helpful in that. In between then and now, I'd love you to do an activity and come back and share those thoughts. And then we can have a conversation and dive deeper about what that support would look like. I normally love to have them draw out a picture of their 1 year future. That's a great one. Or you can have them do whatever kind of maybe little activity. Maybe you can have them do a quiz or an analysis of the area that they're looking to improve on, and they can bring that back. And that gives you a reason to come back for the conversation a second time. So I love that. And it also shows that, hey, you know what you're doing as a coach. Wow, we're already at the bottom of the hour. This has been great. There's so much more to explore here and to think about. And so I'd love to get your thoughts. What do you think about that? Um, what do you think about what questions do you struggle with? Um, and yes, Lee, be yourself, be authentic. And that's how that I'm working and striving to do, because it can be a performance. But again, if you're in this space, if you're having a challenge with marketing, sales as a lean person, and you'd like someone to walk alongside you on the journey and support you through that, that's what I do. That's what I love doing. Shoot me a DM. Let's have a conversation. And next Tuesday, we're going to come back with another live coaching session. We're going to be back with Alex Jackson. He has got a really unique take on innovation and improvement. And I think you're going to really enjoy our conversation. Again, it's a live coaching session. I have no clue where it's going to go. We're going to start with, what's on your mind today, and then we're going to go from there. So again, thanks so much for being here today. Have a fantastic weekend. Let's keep the conversation going, and we will see you again on Tuesday. Be well, my friends.